Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving right into one of the most foundational journey narratives out there, a story packed with crisis, incredible miracles, and the birth of a whole new way of life, all drawn directly from our source texts.
So let's start with this incredible promise. You got to picture the scene. They're trapped with an enemy army at their back and an entire sea in front of them. It's a moment of absolute terror. And this one sentence sets the tone for everything that's about to happen. This idea that divine help shows up when the odds seem completely impossible.
Here's the game plan for today. First, we're going to walk through the journey itself, the beginning and all the trials. Then we'll step back and analyze what this story is really telling us. What kind of portrait of God emerges? What new rules are laid down? And finally, why it all ends with a command to create a lasting memorial.
All right, let's get into it. The journey doesn't kick off with the most direct route, not a straight line from point A to point B. Nope, it starts with a very deliberate, very strategic detour.
You know, the very first act of guidance we see is actually a psychological one. The text says God leads them the long way around, not because the path is better, but because he knows this group of people is just not ready to face a war. He actually anticipates their fear and diverts them, all to protect their brand new freedom. And the guidance they're getting? This isn't some subtle feeling or a little voice in your head. It's described as this massive physical thing, a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. Think about that. A 24/7, impossible-to-miss signpost in the sky, a constant reminder that they are absolutely not alone out there.
Okay, so let's move into the next phase, because as soon as they get deep into the wilderness, a really clear pattern starts to emerge. You see this cycle of crisis followed by human complaint, which is then met with some kind of divine intervention.
And these challenges are just relentless. It's not just one thing, it's a whole sequence of escalating life-or-death crises. First, an army is chasing them. Then they have no water. Then no food. Then no water again. And to top it all off, they get attacked. Every single event is pushing them to the absolute limit.
So let's look at that first big trial, the Red Sea crossing. The text lays it out as this very clear, methodical sequence of events. Moses acts, then God's power comes through a natural force, a powerful east wind, and the result is a double-edged sword, salvation for the Israelites and total annihilation for their enemies. It's systematic and just devastating.
And this is where you really see that repeating cycle we were talking about. Every single time, human panic and complaining is met with a direct, miraculous fix. Fear of an army, the sea parts. Thirst, bitter water becomes sweet. Starvation, food literally rains down from the sky. It's a clear pattern.
And yet, despite this crystal clear pattern, we get to this moment. They ask this question at Rephidim. After the sea parted, after undrinkable water was fixed, after bread started falling out of the sky, they still ask, is God even here with us? This question just perfectly captures the tension of the whole journey. It's this constant battle between what they've seen with their own eyes and what they're afraid of in the moment.
So we've seen what happened. Now let's switch gears and ask, what does all this action tell us about the character of God in the story? Because the text doesn't just give us a list of adjectives, it shows us through deeds.
Right. To answer this, we really have to look at this whole story as more than just a travelogue. It's a character study. Every miracle, every command, every act of providing food and water, it's all presented as another piece of evidence about who God is.
And the portrait that comes together is incredibly complex. He's a savior, parting the sea. He's a provider, literally raining down food. A powerful warrior who destroys an army. A constant guide. A healer, a judge. And above all, holy. These aren't just abstract ideas. They are titles that are earned through the specific events we just talked about.
This is a perfect example. After a huge military victory, Moses builds an altar and he gives it a name, Jehovah Nissi, which means the Lord is my banner. Now, a banner is what an army rallies around, right? It's their symbol of identity and strength. And right here, that symbol is explicitly named as God himself. It basically cements his role in their survival and success.
Now, this journey through the wilderness wasn't just about surviving one crisis after another. It's also the setting where a brand new social and spiritual blueprint gets laid out. A whole set of rules starts to form, and they come directly out of these experiences.
And what's so interesting is that these laws aren't just handed down out of the blue. They are directly connected to what just happened. The rules about food, they come right after the miracle of manna. The rules about trust, they come right after everyone was doubting. The law is contextual. It's rooted in their actual lived experience.
And you can see these rules really touch every part of their lives. Your relationship with God, that's about trust and observing the Sabbath. Your relationship with your community, that's about respecting leadership. Even your relationship with your stuff, your resources, is governed by rules, like only taking what you need for that day.
The rules around the manna are just a masterclass in theology and economics, all rolled into one. Think about it. Gather only what you need for today. That's a lesson against hoarding. Gather a double portion on day 6. That's a lesson in planning and faith. And then rest on day 7, which teaches that your survival doesn't ultimately depend on your work, but on the one who provides. It's a whole system designed to build daily dependence and trust.
All right, so as we move into our final section, we see that the journey doesn't just wrap up with a victory. It ends with a really powerful, really important command you must never, ever forget.
You know, the final battle that's described is pretty unique. The victory is directly tied to a human action, Moses holding up his hands. When his arms get tired and they start to drop, the battle actually turns against them. It literally takes the community, Aaron and Hur, physically holding his arms up to get the win. This shows a whole new dynamic, where God's power is working together with human effort and support.
So after this really tough battle, what's God's very first command? It's not, go have a feast. It's not celebrate. It's write this down, record it for a memorial, and rehearse it. Tell it over and over again to the next generation of leaders. The act of preserving the memory is presented as being just as important as the victory itself.
And this all brings us to our final big question. After watching a sea split in two, after eating food that fell from the sky, after all these undeniable miracles, why is the ultimate, final, most emphatic command simply to remember? Maybe the text is suggesting that memory is incredibly fragile, as the people's own doubts proved over and over. And for this new community, their identity, their laws, their entire future would have to be built on the simple, powerful foundation of remembering the journey.